Colorado Territory, 1873. The dying light of dusk painted the endless plains in hues of amber and gold, a beauty that 20-year-old Sophia Benson found both breathtaking and terrifying. 6 months since leaving Boston, and the vastness of the frontier still overwhelmed her. She stood at the edge of her uncle's homestead, watching the horizon swallow the sun, the cool evening breeze lifting tendrils of her honey-blonde hair from her simple blue cotton dress. "God help me," she whispered. "This land will either make me or break me." In the East, she'd been the daughter of promise, educated, cultured, destined for a proper marriage to a proper gentleman. Now, after her parents' sudden passing from influenza, she found herself transplanted to this savage wilderness, living with an uncle she barely knew. The frontier was no place for a woman alone. Everyone had warned her. Out here, a person needed family, needed protection. Love was a luxury that belonged to settled places, not the untamed territory where survival consumed every waking moment. Sophia pulled her shawl tighter. Her uncle's property needed constant attention, and tomorrow brought another day of endless chores. What she wanted was simple: to survive long enough to save passage money back east, where civilization and security awaited. What she told no one was how desperately lonely the isolation made her feel, how she yearned for connection deeper than her uncle's gruff acknowledgments or the polite nods from townsfolk who still considered her an outsider. "Miss Benson, your uncle's calling for you," called Martha, their housekeeper. "Says there's riders coming." Sophia turned toward the house, squinting at the dust cloud approaching from the south. Visitors were rare, especially as dusk settled. Her uncle stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, a reminder that hospitality and wariness went hand in hand on the frontier. "Stay by the house, Sophia," he instructed as 3 riders materialized from the dust. The lead rider dismounted with an easy grace that spoke of a lifetime in the saddle. He removed his hat, revealing sun-bleached brown hair and a face too young for the confidence he carried. Clean-shaven except for the lightest stubble along his jaw, he couldn't have been more than 25. "Evening, Mr. Benson," he called, his voice carrying clear across the yard. "Thomas Daniels, foreman from the Rockingham. We're moving cattle north and had a rider injured. Wondered if we might trouble you for some clean water and perhaps a place to let him rest until morning." Sophia watched from the porch as her uncle grudgingly invited them closer. The injured man was helped from his horse, grimacing with each movement. Without thinking, Sophia stepped forward. "Bring him inside. I can tend to him." The young foreman, Thomas, looked up, seemingly noticing her for the first time. His eyes, startlingly blue against his tanned skin, widened momentarily. "Much obliged, Miss Benson." Sophia Benson. Their eyes locked for a heartbeat too long, and something electric passed between them, a recognition that made her breath catch. As she turned to prepare bandages, Sophia scolded herself. Foolish girl. Men like him drifted with the seasons, as impermanent as summer rain. The frontier bred wanderers, not husbands. Yet as she cleaned the injured cowboy's wound while Thomas hovered nearby, the foreman's steady presence unsettled her carefully constructed defenses. Here was a man completely at ease in this wilderness that terrified her, as though the vast, untamed land had shaped him rather than threatened him. "Your man will be fine," she told Thomas later as they stood on the porch under a canopy of stars. "The cut isn't deep. He's not just my man, Miss Benson. These boys are family to me." Thomas leaned against the railing, studying her. "How long have you been out here? You don't speak like folks born to the territory." "6 months. I came from Boston after my parents died." "And do you like it here?" The question seemed genuine, curious rather than mocking. Sophia hesitated. "It's different. Beautiful but harsh. Lonely." Thomas nodded, understanding in his eyes. "The land takes getting used to. But there's something honest about it. Out here, a person can't hide behind fancy words or fine clothes. The frontier strips you down to who you really are." "And who are you, Mr. Daniels?" The boldness of her question surprised her. His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. "Just a man who found his place under the big sky." As dawn broke, the cattle drive prepared to move on. Sophia found herself inexplicably disappointed to see Thomas readying his horse. "Miss Benson," he said, approaching her one last time. "We'll be back through this way in about 3 weeks. The ranch owner wants to discuss possibly using your uncle's north pasture for grazing rights." He hesitated. Perhaps I could call on you then, properly like. The invitation hung between them, an open door to something Sophia had convinced herself couldn't exist out here. Before she could formulate a proper response, he mounted his horse. Until then, he said, tipping his hat before riding away. For days afterward, Sophia found her thoughts drifting to Thomas Daniels, to the quiet confidence in his voice, to the way the wilderness seemed to bend around him rather than threaten him. She told herself it was foolishness. 3 weeks came and went with no sign of the cattle drive's return. On the 4th week, a spring storm blew in with frightening intensity. Sophia was alone at the homestead, her uncle having left that morning for town before the weather turned. As the wind howled and rain lashed the windows, she heard pounding at the door. Thomas Daniels stood on the porch, soaked to the skin, hat in hand. "Miss Benson," he said, water streaming down his face. "Forgive the intrusion. Got caught in the storm. The rest of the men are sheltering at the line shack with the herd, but I was scouting ahead and—" He trailed off, looking both apologetic and relieved to see her. "Come in before you drown, Mr. Daniels," she said, stepping aside. As she helped him dry off by the fire, bringing coffee and blankets, Thomas explained the delay. River was too high to cross safely. Had to wait it out, then take a longer route. His eyes found hers. "I was worried you might think I'd forgotten my intention to call on you." "And had you?" she asked, surprising herself with her directness. "Not for a single day," he answered quietly. The storm raged through the night, confining them to the house, with only conversation to pass the hours. Thomas spoke of growing up on a small farm in Missouri, losing his parents in the war, finding work with cattle drives at 16, and eventually earning his position as foreman through hard work and honesty. Sophia shared her sheltered Boston upbringing, her dreams of teaching, and her struggle to adapt to frontier life. "The vastness of it terrifies me sometimes," she admitted. "In Boston, everything had boundaries, had order. That vastness saved me," Thomas replied. "After the war, after losing everything, I needed space to breathe, to find myself again." He studied her face in the firelight. "The frontier isn't just wild country, Miss Benson. It's possibility. Out here, a person can become who they're meant to be, not who others tell them to be." The storm passed by morning, leaving behind a freshly washed world. Sophia's uncle returned, disapproving but tolerating Thomas's presence once the circumstances were explained. Before leaving, Thomas invited them both to a spring gathering at the Rockingham Ranch the following weekend. "The owner, Mr. Morris, wants to properly thank you for helping our injured rider," he explained, though his eyes remained on Sophia. "There'll be music, dancing. Folks from all over the territory attend." Her uncle agreed they would come, more interested in discussing potential grazing arrangements than social niceties. As Thomas rode away, Sophia found herself counting the days until the gathering with an eagerness that both thrilled and frightened her. The Rockingham spread was impressive, a large main house, bunkhouses, barns, and corrals spread across a valley with mountains rising in the distance. Lanterns hung from trees, and a platform had been constructed for musicians. Families from surrounding homesteads mingled with cowhands and ranch owners. Sophia felt conspicuous in her best dress, a pale green cotton with lace trim that had once seemed plain in Boston, but now marked her as Eastern among the frontier women. Thomas found her almost immediately, handsome in clean trousers and a pressed shirt, his hair still damp from washing. "Miss Benson," he said, eyes lighting up. "You look beautiful." He introduced her to the ranch owner, to the cowhands she had helped, to neighboring families. With each introduction, Sophia felt something unexpected: acceptance. These people didn't view her as an outsider, but welcomed her as Thomas's special guest. When the fiddle struck up a lively tune, Thomas extended his hand. "Would you do me the honor?" Dancing with Thomas beneath the stars, surrounded by the laughter of community, Sophia felt something shift inside her. This wasn't the refined society of Boston, but there was joy here, connection, people who faced hardship together and celebrated the simple pleasures with genuine hearts. "You're smiling," Thomas observed as they whirled around the platform. A real smile, not the polite one you usually wear. She hadn't realized he'd noticed the difference. "Perhaps I'm finding things to smile about." As summer progressed, Thomas found reasons to visit the Benson homestead regularly. He helped repair fences, advised on crops, brought news from distant parts of the territory. Each visit deepened their connection, revealed new layers of the man beneath the confident foreman. One evening in late August, they sat on the porch watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in purples and golds. Sophia's uncle had retired early, leaving them in the twilight with only the chirping of crickets for company. "I had a letter from Boston today," Sophia said quietly. "My father's former business partner has offered me a position as a companion to his daughter. It would mean returning east to civilization." Thomas stiffened beside her, his hands gripping the porch railing. "Is that what you want? To return?" The question hung between them, weighted with unspoken feelings. 6 months ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, she turned to face him. Now I find myself torn. Because of the land? His voice was carefully neutral. Because of many things. The land, yes. The people. The possibilities I've discovered here. She gathered her courage. Because of you, Thomas. His hand found hers in the gathering darkness. When I first saw you, standing on this porch looking so out of place, something told me you belonged here more than you knew. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. I've been half in love with you since that day, Sophia Benson. The confession hung in the warm night air, an offering she hadn't dared hope for. I should return to the ranch, he said eventually, standing. Think about Boston, Sophia. But think about what you'd be leaving behind, too. After he rode away, Sophia stood watching the stars emerge, her heart torn between the security of the world she knew and the promise of a life she was only beginning to imagine. A week passed with no word from Thomas. Then, too, Sophia penned and discarded multiple replies to Boston, unable to commit either way. On the third week, a rider came not from the Rocking M but from town, bringing news that chilled her blood. Rustlers hit the Rocking M's north herd, the rider told her uncle. Thomas Daniels and 3 hands were ambushed. 2 men killed outright. Daniels took a bullet defending the herd, condition unknown. They've brought him to Doc Miller in town. Sophia didn't remember the ride to town, only the desperate prayer repeating in her mind. Not him. Please, not him. The doctor's office was crowded with Rocking M hands when she arrived. They parted silently at her approach, respect and something like understanding in their eyes. Thomas lay pale but conscious on the doctor's table, bandages wrapped around his shoulder and chest. His eyes found hers immediately. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, though his face betrayed his relief at seeing her. "Where else would I be?" She took his hand, not caring who witnessed the intimacy. For 3 days, Sophia barely left his side, helping change bandages, coaxing him to eat, reading to him during long afternoons. On the 4th day, as fever finally broke and color returned to his face, Thomas caught her hand. "I had a lot of time to think, lying here," he said, voice stronger than it had been. "About what matters. About how quickly everything can end." He studied her face. "Have you written to Boston?" "No," she admitted. "I couldn't bring myself to decide." "I'm glad," he said simply, "because I have something to say that might influence your decision." He shifted, grimacing slightly. "The ambush made something clear to me, Sophia. I don't want to waste another day without telling you how I feel." Her heart quickened. "And how do you feel, Thomas Daniels?" "Like a man who's found his true north." His eyes, intensely blue even against his pallor, held hers. "I love you, Sophia Benson. I love your courage in facing a world that terrifies you. I love how you see beauty where others see only harshness. I love that you're still discovering who you truly are." Tears blurred her vision. "I'm afraid," she whispered, "not of loving you, but of this life. The danger, the uncertainty. That's what makes love out here more precious," he said. "We don't take tomorrow for granted." 2 weeks later, Thomas was strong enough to ride again. Sophia had written to Boston, declining the position with gratitude. Something had shifted in her. The frontier no longer seemed like an alien landscape, but a canvas of possibility. Then came the letter that changed everything. It arrived on a crisp October morning, addressed to Sophia in an unfamiliar hand. Inside was a legal document and a brief note explaining that Thomas Daniels was not merely a ranch foreman, but the half-owner of the Rocking M, having bought into partnership 3 years earlier after saving the ranch from bankruptcy. Sophia confronted him that evening when he came to call, the letter clutched in her hand. "You lied to me." Thomas removed his hat, regret clouding his features. "I didn't lie. I just didn't correct assumptions." "Why? Why let me believe you were just a foreman?" Because too many women have been interested in Thomas Daniels the rancher, not Thomas Daniels the man. His voice was quiet. When I met you, I wanted to be sure that whatever grew between us was real, not colored by property or position. You didn't trust me, she said, hurt evident in her voice. I didn't trust what life had taught me. He stepped closer. My parents died with nothing. I built everything I have from dust and determination. Along the way, I learned that people see the ranch, the cattle, the success, but rarely the man behind it. His eyes pleaded for understanding. Can you forgive me? Sophia turned away, confusion and hurt warring with her feelings for him. I need time, Thomas. Take all you need, he said softly. But know that nothing's changed for me. I loved you when you thought I had nothing but a saddle and a season's wages. November brought early snow and word that rustlers had been spotted near the territory's northern border. Thomas rode out with a posse of ranchers and the territorial marshal, promising to return within the week. 2 weeks passed with no word. Then 3. Sophia alternated between anger at his deception and fear for his safety. On the 23rd day, a blizzard descended on the territory, bringing bitter cold and howling winds that rattled the homestead windows. Just before dusk, when the storm was at its fiercest, Sophia heard pounding at the door. Thomas stood there, snow-crusted and exhausted, blood frozen on his temple from a cut above his eye. Thank God, he breathed, nearly collapsing as she pulled him inside. Horse went down in a drift 3 miles back. Thought I might not make it. As she helped him warm by the fire, cleaned his wound, and brought him hot coffee, Sophia realized with crystal clarity what truly mattered. Not his position, not her pride, not even the harshness of frontier life. Only this man who had risked death in a blizzard to return to her. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered, voice breaking. I was so angry about your secret, and then you were gone, and I thought. Thomas pulled her into his arms. It would take more than rustlers and blizzards to keep me from coming back to you, Sophia Benson. That night, as the storm raged outside and her uncle slept in the next room, Thomas told her everything. How they'd tracked the rustlers to their hideout, the fierce gun battle that followed, how they'd recovered most of the stolen cattle, but lost 2 good men in the process. I kept thinking about you, he admitted. About how I might die with things unsettled between us. About how the last words you might remember from me were a request for forgiveness I wasn't sure you'd grant. Sophia took his face between her hands. I forgive you, Thomas. And I love you. Not for your ranch or your position, but for your heart. For the man who sees me truly and loves me anyway. On Christmas Eve, with her uncle's blessing and the entire Rockingham crew as witnesses, Thomas knelt before Sophia in the ranch house parlor, a simple gold band in his hand. Sophia Benson, you came west expecting only wilderness and found a community instead. You faced your fears and discovered strength you never knew you had. His voice was steady, his eyes never leaving hers. I'm asking you to take one more step into the unknown. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me be your shelter in the storms. And let me learn from your courage every day. Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, too overcome for words. When he slipped the ring onto her finger, the cheers from the assembled ranch hands and neighbors nearly drowned out his next words, spoken close to her ear. Forever, Thomas whispered, his breath warm against her skin. That's my promise to you. In that moment, with snowflakes drifting past the windows and the man she loved holding her close, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that the wild frontier had become her true home. They married in April 1874, when the prairie bloomed with wildflowers. By summer, they'd broken ground on a house of their own on Rockingham land, with wide porches facing both sunrise and sunset. In winter, Sophia started a small school for the children of ranch hands and neighboring homesteaders, finding purpose in passing on her education. 5 years later, as they stood on their porch watching their 3-year-old daughter chase fireflies in the twilight, Thomas wrapped his arms around Sophia from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Any regrets? He asked softly. About Boston, about the life you might have had? Sophia turned in his embrace, looking up at the face she knew better than her own, still youthful at 30, but with lines of experience etched around his eyes, evidence of years spent squinting into sun and distance. Not one, she answered truthfully. This life isn't easier than the one I left behind. It's harder in many ways. But it's real, Thomas. Everything here is earned. Nothing is pretended. She glanced at their daughter, at the home they'd built, at the land stretching endlessly around them. I found myself in this wilderness. I found you. I found home. As twilight deepened into night, they stood together watching stars appear one by one above the land that had tested them, transformed them, and ultimately embraced them. Two souls who had discovered that love didn't just survive the frontier, but flourished there, growing stronger with each challenge weathered together.